So I'm here with Julie Jones, Director of Alta Villas in Javea, and this is the second part of our little series. And now we're going to talk about selling your house. Now, we've been very happy for some time. We purchased it, we've had a great time, but now, sadly, we're selling it. So nice to see you again, Julie.
Hi Barry, and thank you for inviting me.
And please explain. That's what we want to know.
Okay. So when a client comes to us and they're looking to sell their property, and they're asking, well, what can you as an agency do to help me sell my property? So we always say to him, we are a fully licensed agency. Agents now in the Valencian community by law have to be on a register, which means we are licensed and we are insured to be able to help people to buy and sell properties. We have an office, have a high street office, which is good because we're very visible. You can come and see us anytime you want, and we also attract a lot of buyers.
You're also in a very busy area, aren't you?
We are front line.
You know, this hour now here is really,
yeah.
I mean, throughout the summer, it's absolutely heaving, isn't it, with people?
It is.
Yeah,
it is.
so it's a great location.
It's very, very busy.
Yeah.
But the main thing where people are going to find your property, if you list it with Alta Villas, is through the internet. So you need to go to an agency that has a very, very good online presence. Okay, we have an excellent website. This morning I googled real estate agents in Javea. We're on the front page, and the ones before us were either sponsored, i.e. paid adverts, or they were portals.
It's very good.
It's good to be front page.
Absolutely, yeah.
We also do advertise on portals, various portals, and we are very, very, very present on social media, which is another very, very fast growing area to market.
Yeah, for sure.
So you need to sort of think about that you trust the agent is going to present your property in good light. So how are they going to do that? First things first is we'd like to go and see the property, and we will give you honest opinion and advice as to how you can best make your property or present your property.
And I suppose a lot of people will come back to you if they purchased through you in the first place.
Yes, I would hope so.
Of course, yeah. So at least you have an insight into the property already.
Exactly. But when somebody comes in and they're going to list a property, the first thing we do is we go onto the cadastral to find out the cadastral description and plan. What is the property? Is it urban? Is it rustic? All that information. What's the cadastral value, which is very important these days now because that affects how much tax the buyer is going to be paying. And obviously then we go to see the house. So as you go in, you're straight away thinking of curb appeal. What's it look like when you pull up?
Yeah.
Is it easy to get into? Does the door open? Does the gate open?
Yeah.
And you go into the property. Again, is access easy? Can you?
Well, that's your brain working all the time, isn't it?
Yes.
You know, about the property, whether you're buying or selling, it's constantly churning it over, isn't it?
It really is, and that's what the buyer's going to be seeing as well. So we will sit with the vendor and we will give them honest opinion on their property. Okay, most of them are all lovely. Also, we give a professional valuation. With the valuation, we also do market comparables. So, this property just down the road was sold for this price. Another property is on the market for this price. So it really does evidence your valuation.
And is that a verbal valuation, or do you do it in writing?
We always back it up with an email.
Okay.
In writing, this is our professional valuation.
Yeah.
And we, when we see the vendor as well, we'll ask them what do they know about selling a property. Quite often they don't really know. Right. So we're also talking to them about other aspects, what they need to do to present their property in a legal capacity. Okay, so if we just look into that now, all properties in Spain and all over Europe have to have an energy certificate.
Oh, okay? Yes, yeah.
If you one of those ones that you see on a fridge. It tells
Yeah,
you
yeah. It's been one of those around for a while, though, isn't there?
It's been around for a while.
Yeah.
We really should have that before we actually put it on the market.
Right.
But more often than not, it's done when the vendor actually gets a buyer, which really it shouldn't be.
Right.
But so they'll need an energy certificate. In this area now, they would need a valid second habitation certificate. That basically says that the house is habitable.
Yeah.
Okay. Quite often now, because technology has advanced so much, it's very easy for the town halls to see the actual size of a property and compare it with land registry. It's called catastral versus land registry. And when houses were built in an urbanisation, say 30 years ago, it would be allocated a certain size.
Yeah.
Quite often that's different now from how they can actually tell the size from however they do it, satellites, drones, or whatever.
With drones, I expect.
Drones, very much so.
It's a very good way of doing it.
Yes, and also in the 20 years that they might have had it, they might have put in a pool that they probably have got a license for, but they haven't updated the land registry.
Yeah.
So what the vendor is going to have to do prior to completion is he's going to have to update all these things with a thing called an obra nueva, which means like new works.
Right.
So there's these different documents. It can seem a little bit confusing at first, but most good agents will be able to recommend a good architect or technician who can do these things for them.
Yeah.
Certainly would recommend that the vendor has a good lawyer as well.
Yeah.
Quite often it's people say, oh, well, like it's easy to process the paperwork. You should do it as the agent. I don't need a lawyer. We always recommend that they do need a lawyer, because if there are any issues, legal issues as you go down the line, it's far better for the vendor.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
The same with buyers.
Yeah.
Okay. So they would have time then to do that. We're marketing the property. Okay. One thing that vendors always say to us, and they always complain, is that they don't get feedback.
Yeah.
They want to know, have we done viewings? What were people saying about the viewings? So Alta Villas, certainly, we are very keen to give vendors feedback.
Well, they get anxious, don't they?
Yeah.
They think, oh, I haven't heard anything from the agents for 2 days. What's happening?
Yeah, exactly. Well, hopefully we'll have managed their expectations.
Yeah.
I mean, when you're considering putting your property on the market, you need to consider the seasons. Okay, so if you are going to put your property on the market just before a busy season,
yes,
which would be in Javea area because it's by the coast, or just this area, would be March, April, May, June. It does tend to go quiet July and August.
Yeah.
Busy again September, October, and a bit of November.
Right.
So if you're going to put your property on in November, it might take a little bit longer to sell.
Yeah.
Okay, than if you put it on in
And I'm sure that you would explain that to the client anyway.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. So they would know that.
Yes. One thing that is a bit different here than in the UK, where I'm come from.
Yeah, and me.
Is that there are so many agents.
Oh,
okay?
for sure.
In Javea, there are a lot of agents.
They're almost next door to each other, aren't they?
We are.
You know, yeah.
We are.
Yeah, there's a whole line of them.
Yeah,
and an odd fish and chip shop in the middle.
Exactly.
Just to support us Brits.
Yeah. But that's not a bad thing. It's quite a good thing.
Competition is always good.
Competition is very good.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
However, it's a double-edged sword. You know, it's good to have other agents because they're competing against each other.
Yeah.
But then you kind of lose control a little bit. It can get a little bit messy when you're coming to negotiate, because agents
with percentages and stuff like that, I suppose. But also, it maybe gets rid of some of the bad ones as well. People realise, I went in there and they just weren't professional. So that might help you as a professional lady running her business.
I would hope so. So transparency and honesty, I think, is key. When you're either side, helping people buy or helping people to sell.
It's a traumatic time, isn't it? It's a happy time when you're buying, but it
Yeah.
still can be traumatic.
Yeah.
And when you're selling, for whatever reason you're selling, I think that's just as equally traumatic as well.
Yeah, it can be. I mean, it can be traumatic. It certainly can be stressful.
Yeah, yeah.
There's a lot of things to think about.
Yeah.
But again, this is where you should think of your estate agent as, your partner, if you like, getting you through these
Yeah.
things. For example, one thing that people always ask us is, "Oh, what do I do about all my furniture? I don't want it back if they're going back to their own country. I don't want to take it back with me, or if they're going downsizing." A lot of our clients have had villas and then they're downsizing to apartments.
Yeah.
So what I always say is, don't think about that. Don't worry about that at
No.
this stage. Wait and see if you find a buyer, or when we find a buyer, because a buyer might want the furniture.
Yeah.
In which case you can just leave it.
Or you might sell it with the property anyway.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Worst case scenario, if it all has to be cleared, which would be your obligation, we can help you with all that, relocation services. So once we have found a buyer for the vendor, the negotiations will take place, and the agency really, that's where they really earn their money into getting the best deal possible. And then the whole process the whole legal process will start. So the first stage of that is to produce a reservation contract, and a reservation deposit will then be paid by the buyer. Now, the reservation deposit in Spain really does compel the vendor to take the property off the market, but at that stage it's actually held with the agency. This is to allow the buyer to instruct a lawyer to do the checks, the legal checks that are necessary. Normally that takes between 2 to 4 weeks. Okay. Once that's done, the lawyer's buyer, typically it's the lawyer's buyer, will prepare another contract, which is called a contrato de arras, or an arras contract, sometimes known as a compraventa contract. Okay, this contract is far more detailed, and also it basically sets the way of the buyer paying the arras deposit. Arras deposit is usually 10%. Okay, and that includes the reservation deposit that they've already paid. Now, why is this important, and why is this good for the vendor? Obviously, any deposit, if the buyer changes their mind, they lose their deposit. Okay, but the arras deposit, all of the 10%, is then usually given to the vendor. So the vendor then is really able, this is when I say to people, don't do anything before you get the 10%. Don't clear your house out with all its furniture, or
don't get carried away.
Buy another property. Do that when you get the 10%. Because, if it did all go wrong, then you have the 10%, okay? The chances of it going wrong, but nobody really wants to lose 10%.
No, of course not.
Okay. So then you just then do the things that you need to do for completion. So this is where vendors can get a little bit nervous. They've got certain documents that they've got to produce.
Yeah.
Those documents being, as I mentioned before, the energy certificate, the habitation certificate, and the obra nueva. Okay, if that's required, it might not be required. They need to think about their forward plans. Are they going to buy another property? Are they going back to the country where they came from if they are expats? And then what to do with the house. So again, more often than not, the estate agent will be able to help with those things. Certainly at Alta Villas, we can help you with removals, we can help you with relocation services, cleaning, whatever it is that you need to do.
Yeah, you've got a whole list of people that you can turn to.
Exactly,
Yeah.
Exactly. Another very important thing for the vendor to consider, which really they should consider quite early on, is what they're going to do about their finances. Okay, so a lot of our vendors are British, so they are going to probably want to take their money back to the UK and therefore change euros to sterling.
Yeah.
Now, people say, oh, I'm just going to put it in my bank and then I'm going to worry about currency exchange through the bank. That's the worst thing you can do. For a start, the banks out here will charge you to receive the funds. So when you get your nice check,
yeah, absolutely.
it can be quite
always astounds me, that does.
Yeah, a lot of money.
Charge you to put your own money in.
Exactly. And then they'll charge you to send it back to the UK or to a currency company. And then usually if you're exchanging currency through them, you'll get a bad rate of exchange. So we always recommend very, very professional and legitimate currency companies.
Yeah, there are plenty out there, aren't there?
There's plenty out there, but we recommend two that are based in Javea. They're global,
Right.
but they're based in Javea because they really can help you to avoid the banks.
Yeah.
I hope there's no bank managers watching me.
I'm sure he'll forgive you.
Yeah. So that's the other thing. So the vendor got his house sold, done all the paperwork, sorted out all his furniture, whatever's going to happen with that, sorted out his finances, and then we come to completion. What happens then? Usually, buyer and seller will meet at the notary. Now, the notary is a government-appointed official that checks that everything is correct. Okay, looks at money laundering aspects, where the funds come from, where they're going. Make sure that all the legal documents are present, and make sure that the new deeds are all prepared to exact minute detail, and then literally buyer, vendor and notary all sign and the house is sold. And the vendor will be there, maybe given a check. These days it's more often than not it's a transfer, and the vendor gives the buyer keys. Now if the vendor or the buyer don't want to be there, that's not a problem. They can give a lawyer power of attorney, so they don't need to do anything.
No.
And the lawyer will do everything and sign on their behalf.
Which is handy.
Yeah.
If you're busy, if you've got a busy life wherever you're living full time.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
After that, it doesn't necessarily always end there. There's some other things that might be needed to be done.
Yeah.
And a good estate agent will be there for after sales as well, which we certainly are.
It doesn't end there, you know.
No, it doesn't end there.
No.
But hopefully the vendor's really happy and
Big fat check.
big fat check, and he's made the most of his money. So
Yeah.
and the property is sold.
Good. Well, that sounds all very interesting, and it's obviously not a complicated process because you're going through all the process with the people.
Yeah.
So you're explaining as you're going.
Yeah.
You know, but I think if someone tried to do it on their own, I think they would struggle. So I think you need that in between person or persons, i.e. yourself and a lawyer, because otherwise you could make an awful lot of mistakes, which could cost you a lot of money.
Yes.
So very beneficial to use a good agent.
Yes.
Like Alta Villas.
Thank you.
And I'd like to thank you for spending time doing this with me. And I know you're a busy lady, and to get a professional point of view is what I wanted, and because I know nothing about selling or buying a house. So I really appreciate the fact that you spent your time doing this.
Oh, thank you for giving me the opportunity. It's been
No
a pleasure.
problem at all. No problem at all. Been a pleasure to meet you.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Bye.
Okay, bye.